Hello again. I've just finished work, but I thought I'll do another subject today. So this one is, why does it cost more money to be poor than rich? And it was something I was thinking about earlier on because a lady put on Facebook, has anybody else got problems with their car insurance going up? And it's gone up massively for a lot of people. And I thought, flipping it. Now, when I lived down in England, in my old house, bear in mind I only started to learn how to drive about 11, 12 years ago. But the insurance was always quite expensive down there. So I think the last time I paid insurance down there, it was something like £660. Then I came to live in Scotland and I moved to the Isle of Ling. My car insurance went down to about £80 for the year. And then I moved back down to England for a while and it went up to 900 and something pounds. And then I came back to Scotland and it went back down to 190 for a full year. And I thought, we all know this happens, but it's wrong. Whenever my car insurance has gone down, I have been living in 5-star locations. I've been living in places surrounded by millionaires and people with money. And when I've paid the large amounts of insurance, I've been surrounded by people who've got no money and the poor. And I thought, this is just not right, is it? You pay more car insurance if you live on a council estate than if you live in the countryside. And you pay more car insurance if you live in a place of a high crime location where there's a lot of car robberies than you do up here, because there's not that many up here. So it's like you get punished first of all for being poor because it's already more expensive, but then they punish you again because other people around you steal cars and do stuff to your cars and stuff, and so you get punished twice. And then on top of all that, you've got all the ULEZ charges. And if you're not from the UK, what they're basically doing in some places is they're putting cameras up everywhere and charging you to go through your own streets to work. So you've got to get permits to drive the car, which is absolutely diabolical. And I think it's been going on, I think, in Birmingham and London now for a while. And I know quite a few people have never paid any fines at all. And one guy said he owes about £138,000 in fees, but he's not paying it. But it's a disgrace. So if you live in a beautiful place, you live there cheap, which doesn't make sense, because if you're living in a beautiful place, then generally you've got money. So if you've got money, you get to hold on to it. And then I was thinking, when I was young and I was really poor and I was a young mother, I remember my Hoover breaking. And I couldn't afford to go out and buy a new Hoover. And then this lady knocked on the door, and it was a company that used to come round knocking on the doors only in council estates. And she'd say, do you want to buy an electrical appliance and you can pay for it weekly? And I thought at the time, that's great, because at least I can get the Hoover. So I bought a Hoover, and I think it was £89.99. But because you're paying for it weekly, they put the credit on. So the APR, I can't remember what it was, but it was a ridiculous amount. And this Hoover that cost £89.99 ended up costing me £250. And at the time I thought, well, it's either you have an Hoover or you don't, but it just felt wrong. But I paid it all over the weeks, and then when I was nearly finished, she said, why don't you top your balance back up and get yourself a nice washing machine? And I said, I'll have a think about that. So I went down into town, and we had this store in town where you could go and get things on finance. So it was for poor people. So the APR again was very expensive. And I went in there and I said, I'm looking for a washing machine. And the one that I liked was, I think it was something like £330. And I was just looking at it thinking, can I do this? Because it told you what the monthly payments were, and so a 300 and something pound washing machine would have ended up costing me nearly £500 with credit. So in my head I'm thinking I'll be paying £500 for this washing machine, but I needed one and I didn't have money. So I went to the counter and there was a man stood there in front of me, and I'll never forget this. And he was talking with the girl on the checkout, and he said, I want to buy a washing machine, and I've got my eye on one over there, it's £350. And she went, okay, would you like that on credit? And he said, no, I want to pay cash. And she went, oh, okay. And he said, I want to know if you can give me a discount. And she said, I don't know, I'll have to get the manager. So she called the manager, and the manager came out. And this guy was stood talking with him while she then started talking to me, but I could hear what they were saying. And he said to the manager, if I give you cash now, can you knock some money off this washing machine? And he said, yeah, no problem. I'll tell you what, I'll give you 10% discount. So this man was like, great, and can you deliver it? Yes, I can deliver it. So he got 10% off. And I was stood next to him, and all these cogs were going round in my head, and I'm thinking, he's just got pretty much the same washing machine as me, but he's got it cheaper than me, and I'm paying over £100 extra on top of it because I can't afford it cash. And I think that was one of the first times I felt an injustice. And I thought, I'm being punished for being poor. And that's what it felt like. And then over the years I've met people who only work with cash. And this is what I've learned to do now, because my circumstances changed. When my children left home, I left home. and this is when I started to live like this, you know, in a caravan or live in accommodation with my jobs, basically. Because you normally get either free accommodation or you get it subsidised. So it's a cheap way to live. And that way you can keep more of your wage, and you can afford to be by yourself, and you can afford to work 30 hours a week, you know. So it pays to be like that. But I thought, isn't it rotten that when people are already poor, they don't get a helping hand up? Because all these loan sharks do, and there's plenty of them. We used to have one come round to the door all the time saying, do you need money for Christmas? Now I've always been lucky because I've always been good with my money, and I've always paid my dues and tried to keep things under my budget. And I've had times when I've gone over it, but I remember paying for Christmas all year round, and we'd buy vouchers and hampers, and you'd pay them weekly, but they always added interest on. And then you'd come to Christmas and you felt really rich because you had all your vouchers and you could go and buy the presents and your food for Christmas. But there were people walking around with cash and just paying what the thing was charging on the shelf. And in my head I'm thinking, I'm paying that and extra, so I'm paying more for my children. So when you look at it percentage wise, your wage and your money doesn't go half as far as somebody who's got money if you haven't got none yourself, because you're always getting charged for everything. I mean, in England, in the UK, they tax everything. So you get taxed on your tax. Everything's taxed so much that you think your money doesn't even really go anywhere. But people who've got loads and loads of money don't pay tax. I've known 2 millionaires who don't pay tax, or they don't pay the level they should pay, and they have offshore accounts. And one of the guys that I knew, he used to go to, is it the Isle of Man or the Isle of Wight? I think it's the Isle of Man. And they had like an offshore account there, and he used to go and get his cash for 6 months at a time, and then come back with 6 months worth of money. And he used to say to me, I get everything cheaper because I haggle, because I've got cash. And I get things cheaper, even if it's only 5%. I still get things cheaper. And he lived a very frugal life as well. He didn't live like a king. He lived like I do now. But that's why he had money, because he was really good with it, but he could hold on to it more. But when you get into that place where you're living right on the edge, and then something breaks, and it's something big like a washing machine or a fridge freezer, and you've got a family and you definitely need to have one, then what choice do you have? If you can't get hold of a second-hand one really cheap cash, then the only options left is to go and get finance. And I used to have catalogues, and so back in the day it was K's and Littlewoods that I had, and there was another but I can't remember that one. And again, you'd buy your clothes and things for your house from it, and then pay weekly or monthly. And they always put APR on the end, so you always paid more than it cost on the high street. But it's how we had to live, because we were poor, and it was the only way you could have anything. But it just feels wrong that somebody who stood there on a minimum wage, who's just clinging on for dear life, is having to pay sometimes half again for something because of the ridiculous APRs, especially with the loan sharks. And they put so much APR on the top of the loans that they put them into debt and keep them there. And then somebody who's got the cash, because they've got more money, they've got more money to play with, they can go and get things a bit cheaper because they're just saying, I'll give you cash now for it. And I've learnt in the last 10 years that I've generally been better off because I pay cash. And I can do deals with people and get things knocked off. If I go and buy something second hand and I turn it with cash, the people sometimes will say, oh, just give us so and so, and they'll knock a little bit of money off because I'm giving them cash like that. But don't you think it's wrong though that the poor should have to pay twice? It's like, I don't know, I was thinking about this, like other stuff, because it all sort of ties in. How you've got people going to food banks for the tea because they can't afford meals and everything because they've got into so much debt with other stuff. And this is going off subject now because I waffle, I can't help it. But 10 years ago, when I was still in my house, I did an experiment because I started reading up on the law, and now it wasn't a legal requirement to pay things like council tax and utilities. They're supposed to be only for industries that pay for them. So I thought, I'm not going to pay it then because I'm going to leave anyway, and I'm never going to go back to a house. I don't ever see me living in a house again unless I can afford, with some miracle, to pay for it cash. But I don't want to go back into the system because it ties you back into this trap of you have to pay council tax and you have to pay this and you have to pay that. And if you don't, then you get your house dangling in front of you, like we'll take that away from you if you don't pay stuff. So I'm trying to keep out of the system. But you don't need to tell me if you're poor that you're struggling, because we all know you are, because that's what it's designed to do. And people, I don't even know how they flipping afford to live. But yeah, I was on about the food banks. Most of the people that are going to the food bank around here work, and that is shocking. They're all workers, and you think that is just even more wrong. And they're having to get food gifted to them and cooked for them because they can't even afford to put the gas and electric on. And then you've got people walking around just saying, oh, let's go to a restaurant tonight for tea and get takeouts and stuff like that. And I'm all for equality and everything, but I do understand that people are allowed to be better off because they work for it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the system is designed to keep the poor people poor, and that's what I've got a problem with. It's like, a fine, if you're driving your car and you get a parking fine or something like that, that can wipe some poor people out if you're living right on the edge. And yet somebody who's got money will just pay it off straight off and like, well. So, yeah, it's just sad, really. I want to see the end of poverty because I'm sick of it. And not poverty like some of the poor people I've known in my life, like they just want the best of everything. Why shouldn't I have the best? And I don't agree with that either. I think we should all have an equal amount of land each and do what you want with it, basically. If you're not good with looking after yourself and that's up to you. But it's taking advantage of people I don't like. And when somebody's struggling already and you're saying, well, I'll help you, but I'm going to have to put interest on top of that, when they're already struggling to buy something second hand in the first place, it just doesn't seem right to me. I know it's the same all over the world, because you see all these ghettos and well, we're going to turn into a ghetto soon the way things are going, because I've been watching videos of the cities here that are getting taken over and stuff, and the housing crisis and the rogue landlords. I'm getting carried away now, and I'm going to have to do vlogs on these now. Rogue landlords, I can do a big story on them. we all know them. But yeah, I'll leave it there for now. But yeah, what do you think about this? Why do you have to? Why is it fair that poor people have to pay more car insurance than people who are welfare, just because of their address, just because they're surrounded by people who can't not steal stuff? It's not right. And I know they say you're more likely to have an accident if you're living in a built-up area because there's more cars. And you think, well, yeah, fair enough, but why do people get punished for other people being rubbish drivers and being thieves, and then charging them more than they can afford? I can hear someone here. Right, I'm going to go for now, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.